Hey, Dean Stealer. Do you eat? I meant to ask several times, but I kept forgetting. You don't appear to have a mouth, so what do you do?
Yeah, I eat. Mostly I'm carnivorous. Of course, every carnivore needs some sort of vegetation, and I really like green beans.
You know, that's weirdly adorable to think about, but how do you eat?
You know how squids have a beak hidden by their tentacles? I have the same thing, but not a beak. It's just a toothy mouth. Yes, it's also how I talk.
Huh. Still neat. A lot less adorable, though. Either way, I'm curious about what you actually eat. You were hiding in the walls for a while, so what all did you eat then?
While in the walls, I mostly ate rats, or rat-adjacent aliens. Sometimes I got into the morgue and I'd eat brains and pieces of people before they get either cremated or corpse-starched.
Right, I forgot there's a no-waste sort of mindset in these sort of ships. I'm glad I go with the pork, though I know the pigs aren't exactly raised in the best conditions, but I really shouldn't be focusing on this all too much. I need to get into my video. I know I was promising I'd do a video on the Monty Python game, and I recently found my old character sheet for Planet Mercenary, both of which I want to do. But I'll have to do that in the future because I decided to buy a box of Death Rattle skeletons instead. But I got a backup idea, so let's talk about that. I've been playing video games all my life, almost 30 years now. Dear God, I'm almost 30. Going to put that into the forget box of my brain. And I've played actually not a lot of video games based on tabletop role-playing games. Actually, come to think of it, I think there's only 5, arguably 6. So, let's do a list video because I'm off work today. May as well be a slightly lazy bastard. In the number 5 spot, I'm going to put one of 3 games on this list made by the same developer. Pathfinder Kingmaker, made by Owlcat Games, based on the Kingmaker pre-written game by Paizo Games, which was the event that brought Pathfinder from 1st edition into 2nd edition. This game has some major issues. The first chapter has 1,000 things to do and a time limit. A time limit the game doesn't actually tell you. Major problem with this is that side quests have chapter restrictions too. If you don't do this side quest in this chapter, you can't complete it anymore. A lot of Owlcat games have this, and we'll bring it up in a moment, twice. But add in the time limit for the main quest too, at least in the first act. I don't think it's in later acts, but I can't guarantee that. But the map is massive. The first chapter alone, if you only do side quests and exploring, you'll lose all time to do the main quest. Hell, there's actually a fog that keeps you from going to certain parts of the map until a certain point in the game. The fog thing is weird because it's not tied to quest points. Well, some are, but some are dependent on turn numbers, and when you hit certain points, the map opens up. Do some side quests with some dryads, some more of the map opens up, and a gnome is a dick to you. All of this stops you from doing the main quest. Some of this you need to do now, but if you do it now, it'll stop you from doing the main quest and cause a fail state of the game. Kingmaker is the worst on my list of 5. Second on the list is also by Owlcat Games. Rogue Trader. I vaguely talked about this game when I did the TTRPGs some time ago. Now, this game is pretty good. Of course, it, like all games, have some issues. People say that Owlcat has an Act 3 difficulty spike, and yeah, they do. But I didn't find out about that through Rogue Trader. Why? Because this game was bugged to sin on release. I needed to make a new game file because I got to a point where the script refuses to work. Right after the intro, you go to a forge world. There's apparently a plague on the world, and there's a quarantine zone. You talk to the governor of the world, and you can convince him to lift the restrictions. If you get him to agree, he'll tell you it'll take some time to get things going. So I looked up how it works. Was there a trigger I need to hit, or some event I need to do, or what? Turns out, you just leave the space zone, going into your ship and going somewhere else, and doing literally anything. At least, if the Reddit guys are to be believed, which I should be suspicious of. Well, I did what was recommended, even completing a side quest I ended up picking up on another world. I then went back to the original zone to check, and no, nothing changed. Okay, I explore around to see if there's something I missed, and what happened? I somehow glitched so the Sister of Battle ended up in the quarantine zone, but everyone else was stuck outside. I had to go back to an older save file and I tried again. Same woman gets stuck under the ground. God, what is her name? I uninstalled the game at this point because this wasn't the first time this game actually hard locked on me. This is the third time, and this is just the furthest I got. And it's still in Act 1. This is a really fun game. It got me looking into the tabletop game, but it's just barely functional, and that's why it's so low on this list. Next on the list, however, may be a bit odd for most people. It's Baldur's Gate 3. And I genuinely typed up Divinity Original Sin 2 twice. This is a good game, but Larian has a bit of an issue with Act 3 where it just drops the ball and feels rushed. That's the most common complaint about the game, and that's ultimately my complaint too. What I would really like is a GM mode like Divinity has. It would be great if I could run a game with that, especially given my hatred of the 5th edition D&D system. The mods make it even better. I accidentally downloaded a mod that made the game insanely hard, but I can easily remove it, so no issue there. Number 2 on the list is Wrath of the Righteous, another Pathfinder game by Owlcat Games. Essentially think Kingmaker game, but throw out the time limit and make it much more obvious where you can go and what you need to do. There's also an army control system, but that's the weakest part of the game. It's genuinely just harder to actually perform than to turn on the auto system. And it doesn't make a whole lot of sense in how it works, so just go with the auto system. Their characters are all great in the game, and you can even romance a huge number of them. There's obvious options for evil, good, lawful, and chaotic, which follows the 1st edition Pathfinder rules. Some classes require certain alignments, but there's not just a single game mode. You can play a side story in the 1st chapter and 2nd chapter, and max level game too, and a few other ones I can't recall, but the stories all tie together too, and the companions also have stories. But what's the best TTRPG based video game I've played? Star Wars, Knights of the Old Republic. It's based off the 3.5e D&D D20 system, which automatically gets my approval. This is probably one of the few BioWare games I actually enjoy. The first game has some major issues, and the second game is a bit too short. Both were made on a crunch, and both have some huge bugs in them. Both also have trouble running on modern PCs, so you may need to find an older hard drive or PlayStation to run it. The game does have a class system, but honestly it doesn't feel like a class system. The second game starts you as a Jedi, while the first game has you earn the Jedi Prestige class. Personally, I think getting the Jedi powers for both games is genuinely where the game starts falling. For me at least. Same with how Star Wars Galaxies died because of the Space Wizards. But KOTOR allows you to play in a real-time way or pause to plan moves and actions for yourself and your NPC allies, and your choices can have lasting effects, especially in the sequel. Like I said, there are very few TTRPG based video games I've played. There's a lot of video game TTRPGs I've looked into though, so maybe I'll do the opposite sort of list next week, but I've got skeletons to put together. Shove off.